Oh, hello there. All right, continue with our story time. Like I said, there's a plethora of people that I knew that we were all country boys, so everybody ran into were country guys. So what I decided to do is I'm going to tell you about one more, and then the next one after this. So that'd be three more parts. The next one after this, I think I'm going to cover just small aspects of other guys I knew. Just little things gleaned. Let's put it that way. So, last guy I wanted to tell you about is Trapper Joe. Trapper Joe is an old friend of ours. Matter of fact, the first guy shotgun that I covered, Trapper Joe was his nephew. And I'm going to try not to use names this one because it's too close to home. Now, where my property was set up, my family moved into Mount Cobb in 1936. And we had 48 acres. 48 acres in Mount Cobb. The family behind us had 160. The family on one side of us had 135. And the family directly behind us had about 200. So my cousin inherited the 160-acre plot, which is now Jefferson Township Family Fun Park. Had a nice little lake on there. Great fishing. When I was a kid, you'd go back there. You'd catch perch, like 14, 15-inch perch. But the brush was so heavy in the pond, they were hard to get up out of there, but you'd get them. I have some videos of Jefferson Park and that pond on my channel. And so that was a 160-acre tract that now we owned 200 and some acres that was wide open to family hunting. Unfortunately, in the middle of everybody's acreage, there's a 58-acre swamp. So now, later on in life, I'm going to say back in the 70s, this Trapper Joe bought the property behind us. It's basically it's a big maple grove on the edge of the swamp with pine trees, oaks, and maples interspersed. Beautiful hunting area. Deer, bear, turkey, squirrels. At that time, you can go back there with a 22 and sit, and by the end of the day, you couldn't carry enough game home. Foxes, coons, you name it. It was a sportsman's paradise on our property. Luckily, everybody was nice enough to say, okay, blah, blah, blah. But I always asked permission of the property owners. Mr. Zeiler was on one side, and who was that guy in the back? Butler owned the back end, and Trapper Joe on the other side. And I always asked permission. Even my cousin, I would call and say, is it okay to hunt this year? Yeah. So now, like I said, Trapper Joe is an interesting dude. Back in the Jeremiah Johnson era, when you turn on the TV, that's what you've seen in the 70s, early 70s. You'd catch him out there hunting, him and his family, and they'd be in, your modern hunter garb and whatnot. And Joe would be out there in buckskins. And he had a double-barrel flintlock that he hunted with, and he also had a single-barrel fowler that he hunted with. The thing is about Joe, and he was always a woodsman. He was always out there in the woods. He had a sugar shack out there. He had, or a maple syrup shack, I should say. Not a sugar shack. But he had a maple shack out there, and he was always running through the woods. If he wasn't working, he was in the woods. So a couple of stories. My son came back one day, and he was kind of shaken, and I was like, what happened? He said, Daddy, I was sitting on a big log right on the property line. Yep. And he said, I was just sitting there, and he said, next thing I looked down, and there's an apple on the side of the log. I knew where he was going. So, yeah. Dad, it just showed up out of nowhere. He said, and about 10 minutes later, he said, I heard this laughing. He said, and there's this old guy with big, long, red beard and buckskin sitting up on the top of the ridge laughing at me where Grandpa's post used to be, the deer post. So, well, I guess you got to meet Joe, huh? He said, Dad, he followed me all over the woods. He said, I couldn't get rid of him. He said, but I couldn't hear him either. He said, they just kind of catch glimpses. He said, he walked up behind me. Now, my son was good in the woods. He walked up behind me and put an apple next to me and left to set up on that ridge, and I never heard of him. That's Joe. Joe could walk through the woods. I watched this man walk up to deer, stalk up to a deer, always in moccasins. But I watched him stalk up to a deer and slap it. Scared this deer so bad she ran headfirst into a tree. Didn't hurt her, but she ran headfirst into a tree, took off down through the woods like she was cutting limbs. It was bad. Laugh, oh my God. But this is the prankster that he was. Now, Joe would trap anything that looked like water outside of his regular woodland traps. You would find him in the stupidest places. I mean, you know, little runoffs that just came off of a little creek that, you know, you could pee over. And he'd have traps in there. And he'd be catching. Joe had a trapping shack that, no doubt, the one time I was over there helping him, because he used to hire us to go over and help him skin and whatnot, there had to be 200 coons in there. 70, 80 fox, beaver, you name it. Him and his brothers used to trap everywhere. They had hundreds of traps out, and it would take them an entire weekend just to skin the game. Now, in case you're wondering, nothing went to waste. Muskrats, everything got eaten. Everybody's refrigerator was full, trust me. That was part of your payment. You got to take, 30, 40 pounds of whatever home. So he made just about a living off trapping, which you could at that time. Trapping was coons were like $15, foxes were $20, $25. So you could make a pretty good living off trapping at that time. Even muskrats. I remember getting $3 a piece for muskrats then. They showed me how to case skin. He showed me how to do, all the skinning different things, and it was great. It was just a great way to do things. And I also we used to cut pine boughs and pick Princess pine that he would sell too. So anything we got fur-wise hunting, we'd take over there. He'd pay us for the fur and the pine boughs, the Princess pine and whatnot. Yeah, there's a lot of money you can make out in the woods that you don't have to have a regular job at that time. So anyway, but like I said, he was a prankster. He loved pulling them types of pranks on people. One story in particular, I was out hunting turkeys. Now, the logging road wound down through the pine, on the edge of the pine oak side. So you're winding down this road, and I'd come across this hummock. The pine tree, fell over, and there was a little hump there, and I knew the turkeys would run up the road. Well, I didn't have my shotgun with me. All I had was my .22. So I said, well, you know what? I know they're going to be coming through within the next hour, so I'll set up behind this pine hummock. When they come up the road, I'll wait till they get in the 40, 50-yard range, and it wouldn't be nothing to shoot, headshot one. So I'm sitting there about an hour, sure enough, comes up through the woods. She got about 30 yards away from me. I caught her just under the eye. I was like, okay, up, jacked another round in the chamber, and it's like, from here, I heard, you got her! Well, let me tell you what, the .22 was on the ground, I was over the other side of the hummock, I come up with the K-bar, I was ready for combat. He's laughing, he's rolling around on the ground laughing. He said, oh yeah, big dangerous woodsman you are. And you could not hear this man move. Honest to God, it was just... But that's the kind of prankster he was. few weeks later, I'm sitting in the same area, basically. There's like a road that came down, and then one branch. So it was a crossroads. Everything gathered there. Turkeys, squirrels, everything. So I'm sitting there, I have a 410-22 over and under. It's a single shot, obviously. One down, two down, three down. I think I was on 4 or 5. I was sitting there, hunting and went on. I said, Tommy, what in the heck? Oh, hey, how many of them you going to shoot? Well, I figured on my limit. Why? I said, I got to tell you this. So you come back here every day and shoot your limit of squirrels. And so, what do you think the squirrels are going to be in 10 years from now? So you going to eat 6 squirrels tonight? No. And so, well, then shoot what? 2, 3? And he said, if you want to take your limit, go somewhere else. He said, don't shoot everything in one spot. He said, cover some ground. Have a good time. Don't just sit here and shoot at stuff. That's not hunting. That's killing. I never thought about it that way, and you're absolutely right. There was stuff like that. And, I went back one winter. I used to love traveling this place in winter because the snow would be on the pine swamp, and it was just a Christmas card scene, especially when it was an ice storm. Oh, my God, it was gorgeous. I go back through there hunting one day, and I'm looking down through the woods, and wintertime, you can see pretty clear, and there's this tarp hanging in the woods. Fire going, I walk over. Always hail yourself walking into somebody's camp. Hello in camp. Can I come in? So I walk down, and there's Joe set up underneath this big old canvas tarp, and he'd been sitting there he said about 3 days now, hunting. Him and his family, they were hunting snowshoes and stuff. So they were out in the wintertime, and, bedrolled the whole 9 yards. He slept just like any mountain man would. But that was a nice part about Joe. You never knew where to find him. I almost shot him one day. I was out hunting rabbits along the creek in front of the house. And there's 2 little tributaries that pop off the creek. Excuse me. Never, ever seen anybody there, right? You're going to have to excuse me on this one. I heard somebody talking. So, I'm down there hunting rabbits, and the rabbit bounced out. Boom! And I heard, ah! He was down in the ditch, setting a water trail set, and I shot over the top of his head at the rabbit. I didn't even know he was there. At the time, he didn't have to wear fluorescent orange. So we got talking about that, and he wasn't very happy. So he understood. So yeah, you never knew where to find him, but he was something else. And I remember him going through the woods with that Adirondack pack basket, just chock full of animals and tools and traps and smells and scents, and just seeing a guy walking around buckskin constantly, doing the thing that people used to do. Pardon the animal.